Bashar Assad is supported by the Russia and Iran right now, and we know you don't have good relationship with Iran. And what do you think also about the position of Russia in the Middle East, in the Syria especially?
It's a very difficult question, and I will try to answer it. The Cold War period is over. America against Soviet Union. So Russia is interfering with Syria. Unfortunately, the United States is out of it. I believe if they would have been more involved, they would interfere. But as long as they help to create stabilization in Syria, I think it's positive, because who are you going to support? The rebels? Assad? You don't know who is better. You don't know who is better.
How about the role of Iran?
Iran?
Yes.
They are the number one terrorist country in the world until today.
In what way?
They support all terrorist groups, and they say it publicly. They support every terrorist group, and they claim we are for destabilizing all other countries because they want to be in control, the Iranians. We used to be excellent relations have with the Shah of Iran, you know. That's a separate issue. I'm very much involved with it.
But you know, the Iran, they reached with a nuclear agreement with US and other countries. And don't you think this make Iran less dangerous, if you think they are dangerous?
No.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because they really don't mean it. Yes, in the present, for the next 10 years, yes. The agreement is for 10 to 15 years. But they didn't give up the idea of developing nuclear power. And they have the reactors in Bushehr and in other places where, quote unquote, it is for peaceful purposes. But they didn't give up this idea. So, for now, at least from the atomic weapon point of view, it's better. But they received $150 billion that was kept under sanctions in the World Bank. They couldn't even do any transaction with any banks in the world. Now they do. So this helps them. And their target is to promote terrorism. They say it publicly. Khamenei said a few days ago, the only way to deal is not through negotiations, but with missiles. And Iran, you know, also is in cooperation with North Korea that has the atomic weapons.
But you have also cooperation with Saudi Arabia and Jordan and other Gulf.
Who, Iran?
I mean, Israel.
No, I'm talking about Iran, not about. Yes, we are all against Iran. Only Saudi Arabia and Jordan and everybody against, not to go to war, but to stop Iran from promoting terror all over. And they say it publicly. It's part of their policy, and it's very dangerous.
But
and the nuclear agreement didn't tackle it.
But Saudi Arabia and other Qatar especially, they are also criticized to somehow support the ISIS.
Yes, so not Saudi Arabia, but Qatar, because they are the financial center. But I think that they are reducing it at the present.
But you accept they somehow support the ISIS, which means
we are not accepting it.
No, I see.
Of course not. We are absolutely against it, but we are not a world power. We are not America. We have our position. We will fight ISIS wherever possible.
And
will
in
help.
the Middle East, there has been actually a big conflict between Sunni and Shiite. And do you think to take part in this world, it is correct for Israel? I mean, Iran is Shiite and Saudi Arabia and our
Sunnis.
Sunnis. And in this case, it is correct to take part or prefer or choose the other part, I mean, rather than...
No, we are not trying to choose between Sunnis and Shiites. We have to choose between whoever is an enemy of Israel declared, like Iran, and whoever is not. Saudi Arabia, even today, Egypt, and others, we have peace treaty. They happen to be Sunnis. If they would have been Shiites, doesn't matter. I want to make a point here. Assad, the father, they are Shiites. And we had a most quiet border between Israel and Syria since 1974. So we are not involved in Sunnis against Shiite. We cooperate and work with whoever is good for Israel, friend of Israel, or enemy for Israel. Then we attack them. Not attack them, work against them.
So you are also neutral about the Bashar Assad. He is not your enemy anymore, or...
I don't know. I
You
don't
don't know?
know. Yes, I don't know what to tell you. That's true. It
Because
depends. I know. It depends what happens. Russia is with him. As long as the regime is stable there and he's not attacking us,
It's
you're not
okay.
going to touch him. But we do not know. It was said many times, including by Israeli leaders, this is the end of the Bashar Assad era. But Russia came in and his position was strengthened. So this idea that this is his end of his era is not correct now. As long as it doesn't touch us, we are not going to do anything to it.
I see. And the other question is about conflict between Palestinian and Israel. Do you see any possibility, or do you have any hope about that in the future somewhat this conflict is going to be end? Is there any possibility?
Yes.
How?
I'll tell you. I think it will. The same way
Because it
it
has
ended.
been continuing, I mean, the middle of the 20th centuries.
Yeah, I know. Of course. The problem is they don't want to recognize our right to exist. It's not a territorial issue. So we accepted the 47 partition and so on. I don't want to repeat history. But today the Palestinians are in various countries. 60 to 70% of the Jordanians are ex-Palestinians. There are big number of Palestinians in Syria. So, and in Egypt as well, especially in the Sinai. So, we have a peace treaty with Egypt, Jordan, and this is where many of the Palestinians are. And I believe that at the end of the road, the fact that we have good relations with Jordan and Egypt and so on will help us solve the problem with the Palestinians. We made a proposal that was given by our then Prime Minister Olmert. And the proposal stands until today. And the proposal said, we accept two states. The border will be the old British armistice border with some corrections. In compensation of the corrections, Israel will give to the Palestinian state 3% of the Negev of southern Israel. Abu Mazen listened to it, and he told Olmert that he'll come back with his advisors. He never did. But this proposal is there, and we, the people of Israel, are very, very anxious to have peace. We don't want to have a war forever. So I believe that in cooperation with Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, also Turkey, we can reach an understanding, and we have a proposal on the table. If they accept it,
But beside the Turkish President Erdogan's and other people's, I mean, they criticize sometimes Israel's policy toward the Palestinian people, especially for civilians, because we have seen a lot of example about civilian who get killed, especially some children's. And what do you think about this?
that's the biggest lie one can say. There is a difference. It reminds me about the Nazis, that they lied about the Jews before World War II.
It is lie, you think this is lie?
Yes, absolutely. Not a thing, I know.
Mhm.
Our army and our air force is doing everything not to hurt civilians. Sometimes in a war, if ISIS and Al Qaeda stay in a home with civilians and we know that their commanders are there, yes, sometimes it happens. Many times we give orders to the Air Force not to bombard buildings, even though we know that they are there, the leaders, because there are civilians around there. We don't kill many civilians, there are very few of them, and the numbers are very clear. See, we cannot fall into the nest of Palestinian propaganda.
I mean, beside the propaganda, for example, I can remember I saw on the news there was a child and with his father, and I mean the situation wasn't good, and it was more than, I mean, it was terrible, and it was, I don't think so, just a kind of propaganda, because it was on the news, and I just.
So there are some instances, but very few. We have hundreds, and in the year thousands of collisions with the Palestinians and others and terrorists. So yes, sometimes you have. The Israeli is the most moralistic army in the world. It's known. Sometimes there are problems, and you know, there was a problem now with an Israeli soldier that killed the Palestinians, a Palestinian, even though he was already on the floor. It's in the news. So he is now under arrest. We're investigating him. But he claims, I saw him moving. And if he is moving, you know that they have explosive on them.
But
One minute. I don't know. We are now going to we arrested them. No other countries will arrest their people, Palestinians, Egyptians, if this will happen when they kill
in
a
their
Jew.
country.
Yes, but we do because of our moral values. And if he's going to found guilty, he'll go to jail. That's all. But it happens, you see, one case.
Yeah.
It's the whole world, and there are thousands of them. You cannot be. That's human beings. Sometimes they make mistakes, you know. But we have heard too many of Palestinians who came to Israeli checkpoints and they had a pregnant woman with them only as a camouflage, and then they threw explosives on our soldiers. It happened so many times. So the soldiers are nervous, absolutely. It's easy to sit here and to judge them, but when you have somebody lying there, even lying there, and he's moving, and you know he's a terrorist, he's not a civilian, that he may have explosive on him, then you shoot. But he could have shot not, to kill him, but in the leg. But we cannot just sitting here in this situation. But nevertheless, we arrested him. And we are going to take care of it. No other country will do it in the Arab world if Jews are there. Of course not. You're talking about this. There are billions of dollars of property the Jews left in Iraq and other places when they went to Israel. Nobody talks about it. When we have an arrangement eventually, we demand it already. So it's not a one-way traffic, and it happens, and then we sentence the soldiers that we found guilty, if we find them guilty. But there is a trial, and Israel's judicial system is known to be very fair, and we'll see.
And I have last question. Can we see the peace in the Middle East in the future, you think?
Absolutely. I'll tell you why. I was engaged in the peace negotiations with Egypt. When I grew up, I never thought we'll have peace with Egypt. We had 3 wars with Egypt since 1948. Then we made an agreement. We have an agreement with Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Algeria, understanding, no agreement. Saudi Arabia today. That's most of the Arab countries. So I think that we can negotiate with all these countries and representation of the Palestinians a solution to the Palestinian problem. It has to come. Remember, they are tired of it. They want to work. They don't want us there. That's the problem, that from the age of 1, they are being taught to hate us. We know it. Nevertheless, the same way we have an agreement with other Arab countries, we will have with the Palestinians. I don't know how long it will take. I hope to see it still in my lifetime.
Thank you very much, Ambassador,
Thank you.
for your contribution.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. It was icastnews.com, Heat in the Middle East. I'm Kezban Gebetas.